what do you think about seller financing these properties? And he looked at me and he said, well, I don't know. Nobody's ever asked me that before. 2 homes, 9-acre lot, $1,050,000, which would put each house at $525,000. One of the offers was me offering him about $50,000 over asking. I was going to get them 100% seller financed, and I offered 3% interest. He said, no thanks. We went back and forth. After a few days, he counters, and we came up with, I could have gone 2 homes, over $1 million, no down payment, no banks, no crazy financing, no escrow, cheaper than what I pay for my car payment, which is insane. The dude literally, the day before he closed, wires $450,000 into my account, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. The money came from a relationship. The deal came from a relationship. The construction costs came from a relationship. The contractor came from a relationship. Relationship capital is the only capital that matters. Hopefully you're learning from my mistakes, and hopefully by the end of this video, you actually learn from my mistakes. What's up, everybody? So today I'm gonna talk to you guys about a very special project, how I locked 2 properties up on a 9-acre lot in Joshua Tree, California. Now, would you believe me if I told you guys it was 100% seller finance and I had to come $0 out of pocket? We even got an investor to give us $450,000 to be able to lock these up. So stay tuned, stay till the end. I got some tips, tricks. Hopefully you guys learn from this video. Let's get going. All right, so picture this: 2 homes, 9 acres of nothing but desert, mountain views. There's a couple homes about, I don't know, 100 yards away, and a little fire pit on each of these homes. Now, these are two-bedroom homes. One's the primary home, one's the ADU. However, they both look the exact same. The seller had them up for $950,000 at that time, which when I looked at it, I was like, dude, nobody's gonna pay $950,000. COVID had bumped Airbnb prices up. Everybody was Airbnb, and so the correction was already happening. He thought that the properties were going to sell for $950,000, and they had actually been sitting there for quite some time. So when my buddy Omid, shout out to Omid, took me out there to go look at them, I met the seller, and I fell in love with them, especially because Omid was already doing the same thing a couple miles away, and he was getting a pool installed and told me about the amenities. And I've always wanted to actually do something really high-end in Joshua Tree, and these were already built. They were tiny home vibes, but they were 2 bedrooms. And so I said, hey dude, what do you think about seller financing these properties? And he looked at me and he said, well, I don't know, nobody's ever asked me that before. I said, nobody's asked you to seller finance these? He's like, nope. I said, what if I put an offer together? Would you be interested? He's like, put something on paper and I'll take a look at it. I said, great, I'll get back to you in an email. Now, here's the best part. I was actually already buying 2 actual tiny homes from this seller. He's the builder, by the way, so he actually built these things. And so I had built rapport, which, by the way, write that down, guys. Networking, relationships, build rapport. Literally, it's everything in any business. If you want to succeed in real estate, money doesn't matter. Relationships do, rapport matters, and your reputation matters more than anything else. Make sure that you guys always hold true to your word. Now, we're not getting into this whole sad, happy feeling video, but just know, relationships are everything in this business. So after this dude said, put some offers down on paper, I went home and I typed up 3 different offers. The goal was to keep the payments down so that we're able to cash flow on these properties. I knew we were gonna have to put some heavy money into the amenities, and so I wanted to make sure that we would be able to cash flow on them and get a really good rate, especially considering that rates were on the rise. And so we went back, I typed up 3 different offers, I underwrote this thing 3 different ways, and I sent them out to him. One of the offers, and don't quote me on these because it's been such a long time, one of the offers was me offering him about $50,000 over asking, which is crazy if you think about it. However, bear with me here. I was gonna get them 100% seller financed, and I offered 3% interest. And so he said, no thanks. The second offer was, I give you what you're asking, and you give me 5% interest only payments. And he said no. We went back and forth. Ultimately, we decided on one. The one that he came back at was, I'm gonna pull out my phone because I don't remember the exact offer and I want to give it to you guys, but after a few days he counters and we came up with $1,050,000 purchase price. So that was $100,000 over asking. He wanted $100,000 down, and he wanted to give me 3% interest only payments, which would leave me at $2,375 a month in payments for 2 properties. Now, I went back to him and I said I would take it. However, I want interest only payments. He wanted me to make payments on the loan as well as the interest. I said, I'll do it. I'll give you the extra 100 grand. I'll give you 100 grand down, but I need interest only payments. That reminds me, as a matter of fact, one of the offers was no money down, and then I would give him the $50,000 extra. Well, he came back with $100,000 more, $100,000 down, but he said 3% plus the monthly payment. I said, I'll do it if you do interest only. So we agreed on it. It ended up actually being $2,375 for 2 properties that have the potential of doing over $10,000 a month. So now we're gonna get into the real numbers in just a second here, but it's funny to think about this because I could have gotten 2 homes over $1 million, no down payment, no banks, no crazy financing, no escrow, cheaper than what I pay for my car payment, which is insane. I go back and I pull up all the numbers, making sure that these things are actually gonna cash flow, right? My job is to actually put all the expenses on paper, do a pro forma, underwrite them. Now that I know what my debt cost is going to be, I need to really understand what my expenses are going to be before I go and accept an offer. Now, I had already been doing research on this, talking to all the experts in that market, but I'm going to go to actual numbers here, and we're going to put them on the screen here so you guys can watch. The first thing I did was I accounted for the asking price. However, I divided it by 2. Remember, these are 2 homes. I know this is crazy. 2 homes, 9-acre lot, $1,050,000, which would put each house at $525,000. Now, the down payment was going to be 9.52%. I calculated that because that's $100,000 down on both homes, split in half. You're looking at $50,000 down for one, $50,000 down for 2. Now, I split it in half for 2 reasons. Number one, it's easier for me to divide both because I'm going to design each house differently, but also gives me an understanding of each home in case I want to subdivide the lot and sell one later in the future. And it just makes it easier to be able to write down expenses on each home individually so I can get more accurate numbers as opposed to doing both together on one lot. We are technically buying 2 homes here. So anyway, going back to the numbers, the down payment, $50,000. My estimated closing costs, we still have to pay for closing costs. I know I said you don't have to deal with escrow. We didn't have to deal with escrow. However, you still got to get a closing attorney. We still got to get the documents written up. So there's still a cost, which is a percentage fee. My estimated cost was $7,500. It actually ended up being about $5,600, which saved us some money in the front end. The renovation costs, I had actually accounted for $100,000 per home. That would include things like the pool, the jacuzzi, actually adding a real fireplace, adding a fence around it. Now, as you just saw the flyover of the videos here, as you're watching the numbers come through, we'll show you guys some really high-end stuff so you guys can see exactly how I did it with the walkthrough. But the actual setup cost itself was going to cost us $40,000, and that setup cost is things like furniture, design fee, a little bit of renovation, things like that, right? And so my total investment per home was going to end up being $197,500. So I'm thinking to myself, how on earth am I going to come up with these numbers? Now, it was funny because I wasn't even thinking about that at the time. Right now, I'm like, this is crazy to even think about because if you put them together, you're looking at 200 grand per home. And to be quite honest, I didn't have 200 grand laying around. However, I know a lot of people. And remember when I said that relationships are everything? I don't mean that lightly. I was part of a creative finance mastermind with my buddy Alex Quezada. Shout out to Alex Quezada. Follow his YouTube if you don't. Guy's fantastic about seller finance, self-storage, all that fun stuff. I'm sitting there talking to him one day in his mastermind. He's like, what are the wins for this week? And I'm like, dude, I was able to lock up these 2 properties, 100 grand down, seller finance, 3% interest only payments. He's like, holy cow, that's really good. So I ran through the numbers. And the dude looks at me and he goes, well, you need an investor. I got $450,000 I can give you. That was literally the conversation. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, this looks great. Like, let's do it. I'll buy it with you. And I said, sure. Well, let's talk about how our partnership's going to look. We went back and forth. We ended up partnering together. The dude literally, the day before we closed, wires $450,000 into my account. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. He did get a private money lender as well, or a private investor, which was fantastic because it made the deal happen. And again, right, when you speak into it, when you think about it, when you're around the right people, he knows, likes, and trusts me. He knows how good I am at short-term rentals. He didn't hesitate. He just handed me the money. Anyway, let's continue down the numbers. These properties were projected to do the gross income of 1 year of $123,155.40. The gross income per month would have been $10,262.95. Now, this I pulled from Price Labs and AirDNA data. I now know that these were a little bit of aggressive numbers. They're not performing at this level, but they are doing very, very good. We'll get into those at the end of this video. The average occupancy that I went for was going to be 78%, and my average nightly rate was going to be $382 per night. That's how I came up with the $10,000 per month, and overall $123,000. We had a cleaning fee of $1,200 per month. Now, this is calculated by us charging $150 on a turnover to the guest at 8 turnovers per month. And so that leaves us at an extra $1,200 in revenue for the month. Added to the monthly revenue of the actual nightly rate, we're looking at $123,155. Now, the net operating income after expenses ended up actually being $74,341 on paper, my pro forma, right? The projection. So if you look at it all in all, these things should be cash flowing $60,000 a year per side. So I'm thinking, wow, we're going to be making $120,000 a year in cash flow. Now, granted, aggressive, I'm here to tell you guys that's not how it's gone. It's gone great, it just hasn't gone to those numbers. The projection was we'd be cash flowing $5,000 a month, which we have, but I didn't account for a lot of things. And if you've been watching this far, hopefully you're learning from my mistakes, and hopefully by the end of this video, you actually learn from my mistakes, because there's a lot of good learning lessons in this video on what I went through for this property. So let's go down through the actual expenses on my projection. We had a mortgage amount of $475,000, which we don't really have a mortgage. Well, we do, but we're not really paying down the mortgage, I'm sorry. We're paying interest-only payments. The interest rate that we were able to acquire was 3% for 5 years interest-only payments, which now this means that in 5 years, I actually have to pay this guy the full $1,050,000, well, minus the $100,000 down payment. So I owe him $950,000 as of today. And in 5 years, we're already a year in. So in 4 years, I got to come up with that money, or either I get the chance to extend, which actually leads me to another great point that I forgot about. I was able to come back to him after the negotiation and say, hey, this is great. However, I need a better exit strategy. In case the market goes to crap in 5 years, would you mind extending an extra 2 years? So he said, I'll give you the option to extend up to 2 years for a total of 7 at interest only payments for 3%. So I was like, wow, this is great. So now I get the option to actually do a 7-year term at 3% interest only payments if the appraisal doesn't come back at what we needed to be able to pull his money out and the investor's money out, or I'm not able to sell it at the price I need to sell it for, right? I'm not just gonna do it just because. Okay, monthly payment for this specific property divided in half. Remember, we're dividing everything in half. 3% interest only payments on 475 is $1,187.50. Now, my estimated property tax was going to be $437.50 for a total year of $5,250, which has actually been pretty good. Our taxes went up to $11,500 so far, so it went up a little bit after the close of the property. The estimated insurance is $75 a month. That's been a little bit more expensive. Insurance changed. Now they're not covering as much as we need them to cover. Plus, we're in a fire zone, so that's about $150 right now. Tip number 5, 6, 7, wherever we're at now, have a bookkeeper. This is so crucial. If you're going to take other people's money, you need to be able to give them reports every single month. You need to be able to provide information so that you can make the right decision to either your investors or to yourself, so that you can make the right decision going forward in terms of if this property is doing well or if you need to close it down. So I have a bookkeeper that I pay per property per month to make sure that my reports are done at the end of the month for that specific month. Actually, I lied. It's the 15th of the following month for the prior month, because I got to give her some time to finish. However, have a bookkeeper. It's the only way you're going to be able to know if you're making money or not. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people who try to sell a property and they have no idea what their numbers are. I'm like, dude, no one's going to buy this thing. Make sure you have a bookkeeper, guys. Septic cleaning. So we don't actually have to get this thing cleaned out so often, but we've accounted for it because out in the desert, it gets hot. People do a lot of weird stuff. So we included $40 a month for this bad boy just to clean the septic out, which I have a funny story about the septic, let me tell you guys. This video is going to get long, guys, so bear with me. We'll have some segments here cut out. If you guys want to see the walkthrough, fast forward to the walkthrough. If you guys want to get into the numbers, skip the numbers if you don't want to get into the numbers, but I'm going to go into all aspects of this property. Again, I want you guys to learn from this. All right, the estimated monthly utilities, $650. Grossly underestimated. The worst. We'll talk about that. The Airbnb fee, you still got to pay an Airbnb fee. Now, I put this in the pro forma to account for strictly only Airbnb. If we were only going to rent on Airbnb, which we don't, we're on everything. We're on Booking.com, Vrbo, and Airbnb. I'm trying to get into Expedia at the moment, but I put 3% fee there. And then we have a cleaning fee of $800 a month. Now, you might be saying, why $800 if you're charging $1,200? Two reasons. We use these as a pass-through expense. For all you Airbnb hosts out there, or maybe you're a guest and you guys don't know this, but the way this works, and most hosts do this, is we charge a fee to cover the cleaning cost, and then we pay out a little bit less to the cleaners because we either negotiate a better rate, but also the difference helps cover things like linen replacement, or I have a linen company, so we pay a linen company to wash our linens, all that fun stuff. So we make a little bit of a spread there. In this case, this is not what we're making. I actually underwritten it for paying $100 per cleaning at 8 cleanings at $800. We actually pay $120 to $130. Actually, I'm lying. We pay $140 these properties. So we're only making a $10 spread on our cleaning fee from my original pro forma. Now, the cable and internet per month, that was $70. Again, grossly underestimated because there's no internet out there. So we have to go with Starlink. Starlink is $120 a month, so we're already $50 under here. And then pool cleaning was $250. This one's actually been pretty true. We're actually around $300 because we have to get the pool cleaned once a week. I can write a book about the stuff that I've seen in the pools, but people get them dirty and it costs more money to clean. The one thing that most people don't underwrite in their pro formas, and all you guys should, and by the way, if anybody needs this pro forma, leave a comment below or shoot me a message. You guys can have this. As you can see, you guys are probably seeing it over the screen right now, or if you're seeing my face, you'll see this. It's here on the phone. But if you guys need this or want something of this, let me know. I didn't come up with this one. There's millions out there. I just use this one because I've tweaked it to what I need for the seller finance and for my numbers as a short-term rental operator. But anyway, the one thing that people don't do is repairs and maintenance. This is a 5% per month repairs and maintenance. It's actually been a little bit higher, being that this was new construction, being that we added a lot of amenities. We had gas leaks already. The pools have been leaking water. We didn't get an auto filler, which has been a gigantic freaking nightmare. We remodeled the bathrooms and we had leaks in the actual shower line, so we had to break stuff apart. So all this money has gone into that. And then a management fee. So even though I own the property, I got to pay myself for the work that I do, to make sure that, number one, my team is compensated, and to make sure that I'm actually being a little bit profitable. So I put away 10%. Most management companies out there are going to charge you 15 to 25, maybe even 30% on the high end. I typically, if it's my own property and I have a business partner, I'll either charge 5 to 10%, depending. This one we did 10%, just so I can make sure that I'm being paid for the work that I'm doing for the property. In case, worst case scenario, it makes no money. So all in all, my operating expenses for the year for one house was $48,813 with 97 cents, which leaves it to, if you add the mortgage or the interest payments, we have a grand total of $63,063.97, leaving a projected profit of $60,091. Again, that hasn't been the case. We'll get into the real numbers on a future video. I'm going to do it's been 1 year. This is where we're at on this property. For those that have been following this video and want to know about it, stay tuned. It will come. I'll give you guys all the real numbers so you guys can actually look at that once I have true 1 year data. Thanks to my bookkeeper. All right, so now we have the numbers. I had the person who was giving the money. Funny story though, I wasn't actually talking about $450,000. We were only going to need, remember, based on these numbers, was around 100 grand or 200 grand per side. We actually ended up needing more, which was 450, which covered, number one, the down payment. So there you go, on $0 out of pocket. We raised the money for that, and now the seller's happy. He's got his money, and we were going to implement some serious amenities. So we added a pool, we added a jacuzzi, we added bocce ball, we added hammocks, we added a glamping dome where people can sleep outside and stargaze. We added pickleball courts, huge selling item. I know for you fanatics out there, we have fantastic pickleball courts on the property, and we added private fence. So remember, 2 homes side by side, 9 acres, you still want your privacy. Plus we don't want people showing up at 2 in the morning being weird in the amenities, right? So not to mention, the city actually made us put up a fence, because if you have a pool outside, you actually have a fence so somebody doesn't fall into it walking down the desert. And so we put fences around it to make sure that it looked good, it was secluded, and still have those amazing views. On top of that, we added higher end bathrooms. We added beautiful fireplaces. You'll see the walkthroughs and the aerial shots of the property, but we added some very beautiful amenities inside because we wanted to go high end, and we went a little bit of higher end on the furniture. Again, these are 2-bedroom homes. We're not going to spend a lot of money. All in all, we were in about 450 grand. We actually ended up going over about $7,000 that I paid out of pocket for that, because I wanted to go a little bit extra and add some little special touches. We added some curb appeal, plants, pavers, gravel, just to make the place look nicer. Let's talk about the hardships and the problems that we ran into. So funny story, when we were actually in the building phase, we hit the septic 3 times, not once, not twice, 3 times. And the reason being is because the builder had put the septic in the wrong place from the plans that were provided, which actually led our architect, Angel, shout out to Angel, amazing architect. And by the way, shout out to Luis. I love doing shout outs because, again, as you guys can tell, I don't do this by myself. It's the relationships and the network of people that I have. My business partner, Luis, was a huge help with construction. He helped me underwrite and price everything out, which I can give you guys a pro forma if you guys need it as well. But he gave me a fantastic way to figure out all of the costs of doing the pickleball courts, adding the bathrooms, all the square footage of everything. He even gave me the contractors to be able to work with. Luckily, I found an awesome contractor that did it for us, but being around the right people, again, is key and crucial. I keep saying that, but there's no joke. So anyway, we were able to pivot due to our architect moving the plans and changing the layout of the property itself. It sucked. We dug a hole. I mean, we were pretty much done digging the hole, and then the septic tank comes in, and before we crack it, we have to fill it all up because there's no moving the septic tank. You have to redo the leach lines. It's a big headache. and it's the way the city wants it done. So they just happen to have them wrong in the plans. So that was snag number one. Snag number two, the fence. The fence had to be moved like 4 times, and we actually had the wrong material for the fence. We used a 1-inch pipe instead of 2-inch pipe, and so the winds get crazy in Joshua Tree, and we actually had to redo the fence. The fences were knocking over, which sucked. Luckily, the contractor covered it, and we didn't have to come out of pocket. And of course, we underestimated the material we were going to need for a lot of things, right? We didn't account for gravel. We didn't account for the size of tile for the walls. We actually had my designer pick $5,000 tile for an accent wall, which I instantly said, no, scratch that off. We're doing different, cheaper material, right? It's an accent wall. But that's entrepreneurship, right? And when you're doing these things, you're always going to run into an issue. We did have money aside as a contingency to be able to cover these things, which was awesome. So fast forward to today, the project is done. It's crushing, it's killing. It's actually doing around $300 on average nightly rate, maybe a little bit under on one or the other. We did have a bunch of snags, like I just said. The septic tank was a big one. One of the big things that you guys talking about the numbers is the propane. I did not account for the extremely expensive propane costs. We ended up adding a pool heater, which in turn ended up being really expensive. Propane in the desert is extremely expensive. So there's gonna be a lot of things that you guys will run into when you're doing these projects that you don't account for. Make sure you just stay on top of them and talk to your people. I didn't count for that part. All right, aside from all that, here's the biggest learning lessons. Number one, learn how to underwrite deals and how to make creative deals happen. Number two, learn how to underwrite construction costs and account for as many details as possible. I mean, like down to the lumber cost, square footage if you can. Shout out to Luis again. Number three, surround yourself with smart people. If it wasn't for Luis, Angel, and Omid, and the seller, who made this deal happen, I wouldn't be having this video with you guys and having this conversation or teaching you all of my learning lessons or mistakes, I guess I should say, for you guys to do better on the next one. Remember, relationship capital is the only capital that matters. The money came from a relationship. The deal came from a relationship. The construction costs came from a relationship. The contractor came from a relationship. All of it came from a relationship. My cleaners came from a relationship, for crying out loud. Relationship capital is the only capital that matters. Be around the right people, be around good people, be around ethical people. That's how you're going to succeed in real estate. All right, guys, that's all I got for you right now. If you found this video to be valuable, smash the like button, hit me a follow. It helps the channel, and I can make content like this for you guys. I'm trying to up the game. I'm trying to drop more videos, and I do this for you guys. I don't need to teach myself what I already do, right? I want you guys to learn and be successful out there. And if you guys want to get into a deal like this, shoot me a DM. I love partnering with good people and doing deals with good people. I'll see you guys on the next one.